Hello everyone, Pineaaronapple here with the latest Ninth Doctor box set from Big Finish, because apparently that's all we're doing now. I think that's been my last, 2 or 3 videos? Hopefully next time we'll be able to move on to something new. This installment in the Ninth Doctor Adventures range is Travel in Hope. Last time in Pioneers, we got the end to Cullen and Doyle's story, met 2 historical figures in a story with strange pacing, and we got whatever the beautiful game was. Pioneers was the start of the 3rd series of this line, and ended up with an overall ranking of 7.1, which has once again kept close to the usual average of 7 for these sets. So let's see if this set can overcome the curse of the rating of 7 out of 10, rise above it, fall below, or if this will just be another average set. The first story in the box set is Below There, written by Lauren Mooney and Stuart Pringle, a married couple that have co-written a few Big Finish stories before, but I don't think we've seen them on our channel yet, because I think I'd recognise the name Pringle being written into one of my scripts. So, in this story, our main character, Vix, at least I think that's how they pronounced it, is alone on a space station, running it as a waypoint for a teleportation business, routinely having visions of death and destruction, and of course, the Doctor finds her alone and starts to meddle. This story sits oddly with me, being a common thing in Doctor Who as it slowly morphs from a horror mystery and becomes a message against capitalism and big business, like last box set's The Green Gift. Which isn't bad, but as we move along, it makes me feel as if neither side of the story is fully realised. And as the story comes to a close, the unresolved nature of it, while hopeful, as the title of the box set suggests, Travel in Hope, was unfulfilling for me, as I am a well-known shill for happy endings. Which is the reason I haven't touched Neon Genesis Evangelion yet. So we get a lot of the time with this Vix character, who is played by Kelly Adams, and it does well for the story for her to be the main character instead of the Doctor, or having changing perspectives. The character is acted well, and although I don't think her final speech leaves enough of an impact as it was trying to, it does bookend the story on a satisfactory level, even though it's not an outstanding one. So, we learn that while now being alone and plagued by psychic visions of what could be, Vix wasn't the only character on the space station. She was originally paired with Tom Francis, played by Daniel, I don't know how to pronounce that name, who has probably the best part of the story. Due to the big company they work for being so corrupt and cruel, when there is a family emergency, he was denied access to the emergency teleporter that the company itself markets and runs, rigging it unlawfully to send him away. Unsurprisingly, there is an accident, and instead of arriving at his destination, Vix is forced to bring him back, but not before his consciousness is stretched at light speed and forced to witness the eternity he is attempting to travel through, driving him mad. This starts the moral discussion. Does Vix keep him alive so that his family gets the money he was working for, or put him out of his misery and expose the corruption of the company? As we learn, the problem was not a one-off. Eventually, Tom is given peace in death, and Vix makes the choice to expose the corruption. And like a speech given in another of these episodes, I thought it was serviceable, but I didn't care for it that much. There is a nice touch that we see it from another worker's perspective on another station, but I didn't emotionally connect with the words and performance as well as I wish I could have, leaving me wanting on that side and missing the cosmic horror that the story started out with. Lastly, the Ninth Doctor, still played by Christopher Eccleston, thank God it's not Nick Briggs.
Hello, I'm the Doctor. Hey, what's going on round here?
He was pretty good in this story, even not being the main character. But that left far less room for any poor content. Almost all of his appearance being managed quite well, especially in the scenes with Vix. Well, I say that, but pretty much all of his appearance in the story are scenes with Vix, so yeah. Still pretty good, even if he blatantly serves the script function of moving Vix from scared pen pusher to taking charge go-getter. So while this story has obvious through lines and a flatter ending than I would have liked, the dialogue and performances were otherwise great. both elements of the story working well in unison, but unfortunately being a little lost in the mix by the time the story is concluded. I would have much preferred if they had just focused on either the cosmic horror or the message, respectively, or at least found a better way to integrate them together. I was going to give this a lower rating because of how flat I felt after it left the cosmic horror route, but with the quality of the story I couldn't really justify that in my mind, so I'll happily keep the trend going by giving Below There, written by Lauren Mooney and Stuart Pringle, a 7 out of 10. Next we have The Butler Did It by James Moran. And this story is an odd one, attempting to call out the tropes of a murder mystery story in an average setting, with some half-thought-out characters and inconsistent pacing. That doesn't make it bad, but I had far less of a time with this story than the other two on many levels. This episode opens with a spaceship crash that is strangely glossed over in the grand scheme of things for how personal they tried to play it with the performances and writing, and the Doctor arrives at the repair port that the ship left from. We meet the local population, such as angry, obvious alien suspect I can't remember the name of, who leads the Doctor, and the episode-only companion character on a side quest. The other side characters, played by Paul Thornley and Louise Faulkner, the latter known for playing long-standing character Bev Tarrant. So, obviously, a downside of the story is, while I can picture most of the characters, maybe give you some facts about them, their personality types, I don't remember their names. The only characters that really stood out being the Doctor, our pseudo-companion Myra, and the villain Tilia. So, some of the Doctor's friends arrive, that we have never met before, and while are pleasant, aren't the most standout, and one of them is sent into an extreme sickness. This poisoning starting the whole theme for the story, as evidenced by the title. The Doctor even having a whole spiel about how one of them must be the butler, because it's always the butler who does it. The Doctor leads Myra as they investigate, Myra being one of the better parts of the story, as through the adventure she learns to sort of stand up for herself and become more self-assured, which was nice. And also kind of matches with the story we had for Vix last time.
It's like poetry, sort of, they rhyme.
We get the Poirot-style one-on-ones, although it's the Doctor and Myra interrogating the others, which basically amounts to the Doctor belittling them into anger. We take a detour into an area the Doctor can't access under risk of death, and that does well into Myra's arc of becoming more self-assured, but is obvious from a writer's standpoint as she heads into the room and does the Doctor things that the Doctor obviously can't. Myra is next to be poisoned, and the investigation is fast-tracked, so we can have our pointing the finger around the room moment before she drops dead. The culprit being the ever-grumpy and complaining Tilia. And that was actually a surprising reveal, since there really isn't much to implicate him, a significant amount larger than the rest of the cast, because pretty much all of them are grumpy shits. But at least I found his plan, him using a nanobot virus to infect people, and his attitude to be intimidating once the reveal happens, even if he does get sedated pretty quickly. So in this story, the Doctor is fun, the characters aren't horrible, and we get a few fun moments like Myra's reaction to the inside of the TARDIS. But the story is a bit bare bones with inconsequential tangents and a roundabout focus on making Myra a dynamic character. Not bad, but I'd be remiss to call it anything more than average. So, I'll give The Butler Did It by James Moran a middle-of-the-road 5 out of 10. Lastly, we have an episode titled, after a very common expression in the Doctor Who universe, Run, by Robert Valentine. Although, there is a nice twist in calling it Run that avoids the obvious, referring to a presidential run, rather than the exercise. This also is one of the rare Ninth Doctor stories that holds a returning character or concept, which, ever since Into the Stars back in Season 2, we seem to get at least one episode per box set with returning concepts, including stories such as Salvation 9, Seas of Titan, Flat Pack, Red Darkness, and The Green Gift. Whereas in the whole of Season 1, there were only 2 stories, or 3 episodes, with characters from the wider Doctor Who universe. In Run, we focus on returning character Alpha Centauri, played by Jane Goddard, wife of writer Robert Shearman, and usual audio actor 4Alpha, who can sometimes be a character that's on the grating side. But honestly, in this story, I quite enjoy witnessing the journey of the character, as they are built up into who we meet in the Peladon stories. The only moment I was actively hating was when they made their first speech, and by design, did nothing but trigger my major second-hand embarrassment response. Alpha is set to run for president. Oh, that's gonna get old. Of the Galactic Federation, as no one else is willing to oppose the borderline oppressor who has killed her remaining competition so that she can be sworn in. This vicious politician is Bellatrix Vega, played by Jane Asher, also known as the woman with the greatest reaction face in all of the Sarah Jane adventures.
Meant? Who says I'm meant to die? And I did it, look at me.
The performance and the writing come together to make this character entertainingly insufferable, making it all the more satisfying when she is defeated, even if her co-conspirator is given an overshadowing exit in my opinion. The Doctor is great here too. Christopher Eccleston gets across a great performance in how his character already knows who Alpha is, yet refuses to give his name to keep the timeline intact. But willing to help his friend out to such a degree is a nice angle to give to their dynamic, instead of the usual Alpha who faffs around in the background, while the Ice Warriors and Peladonians run around in caves being chased by a giant pig monster. I don't remember what Agador is. There are also a few minor characters to fill out the Galactic Federation, including an Ice Warrior, which in my mind, adding an Ice Warrior and Alpha makes this a pseudo-Peladon story. An interesting fact is that the member of the Galactic Federation that belongs to the Ice Warriors, Zargol, and yes, that is with 2 Zs, played by Nicholas Briggs, was put on the cover incorrectly. The Ice Warrior on the cover being the Ice Empress from the Empress of Mars, while Zargol is an Ice Lord, like the one from the Peladon stories. Throughout the story, there are also a few scenes that cut to a newsfeed that carry a lot of fun references I liked, such as one to the Rex Cargophalapatorians. So, with something interesting done with an old character, and both a great cast and good writing, Run easily becomes my favourite on the box set. Sure, it's not perfect. I really didn't like the first Alpha speech, even if it was designed to be that way. Annoyance by design is still annoyance. But I really did enjoy the ride, so I have no quarrel giving Run by Robert Valentine a healthy 8.5 out of 10. This comes together to give us the box set, Travel in Hope, for Series 3 of the 9th Doctor Adventures, a total rating of 6.8 out of 10, creating a really confusing trend shown in this graph. I mean, the first 2 box sets may have had recency bias due to the gimmick of having Christopher Eccleston back, but from Season 2 all the way to now, the scores have been 7.1, 6.8, 7.1, 6.8, 7.1, 6.8, which is just so confusing. Here is hoping we break the trend next time, and hopefully it's in an upward direction. Thank you everybody for watching my latest video on the latest of the 9th Doctor audio dramas. Like the video if you liked it, comment down below if you wish, and consider subscribing to the channel, and if you do, ring the notification bell so that you're told every single time that I make an upload. Once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!
Toast. A little piece of toast. Because there's so much to choose from. There's brown bread, white bread, all sorts of wholemeal bread. It comes in funny packages with writing on the side.